go through every single day, and it's just important to say that at the outset. But I will speak about what happened to us because I'm very happy to use us as a conduit to the government actually doing something meaningful, actually taking meaningful action against Israel. So something happened when we were on the flotilla, and when I came back, I'm used to people, if people shout at me on the street anything positive, like, it'd be unusual. But people now are kind of going, oh, well done, or whatever. So it's obviously captured the imagination. Obviously, no one here needed any extra information about how brutal the Israeli occupation is, but maybe they just started doing some brutal stuff to white people and the people that we know, and that made a difference. And to be honest, I'm happy to go with that. The more people who know what's going on, I think the better. That's what I'm hearing from Palestinian friends anyway. But with that in mind, to say that what we went through is nothing compared to what Palestinians went through, but it still just blew my mind that there were Irish participants, I think 18 of us, in that prison camp. I couldn't believe that Ben Gvir kept his promise. He told the whole world he was going to send us to a terrorist camp, that we were going to be put in terrorist attire, and that we were going to be treated as such. And I just, the whole way through the process, obviously you've got mixed emotions, but my main emotion was, I cannot believe that the passport I have is still allowing me to be treated like this, with all the big talk that the Irish government does. I mean, if you park me for a second, a 75-year-old man in our group who has spent the last 10 years of his life in Bethlehem, in Jerusalem, doing camps with kids, was treated with such disdain by the Israeli occupation that they wouldn't give him his insulin for 3 or 4 days, as he was effectively left to die in a prison cell. And there was so much outrage about what was going on to him that in my cell and in my wing, we effectively started a riot demanding that they give Paddy his insulin. He hadn't had any insulin in days, and he was feeling really unwell. And we were really worried that he was going to die, because we're trying to gauge how far are these people going to go with us. When an occupation has enjoyed the level of impunity that they have over the last couple of years, you start to think to yourself, I'm not sure how far they will go and what they will get away with. And instead of bringing a doctor to see our friend, they brought a SWAT team with guns and pointed them in our face and came into our cells and said, we don't have any doctors for animals. And I just thought how shameful it is that the Irish government still has a fairly normal set of diplomatic relations with this state. And I thought to myself, is there any other country on earth that could treat Irish citizens by giving them no access to doctors, no medicine, no lawyers, no contact with the outside world? Not just us, our consul who was present in the terrorist camp, they took his phone and they took his watch off him when he came in so that he couldn't even convey to us what time it was. That's the consulate, let alone the riffraff like us that were behind bars. And I just thought how shameful it is that Ireland still has normal relations with this country, that we have a roaring trade with this country, that we're allowing our airports to be used to carry the munitions to this day to continue carrying out the slaughter. If the British state had treated Irish citizens like that, even if the Americans had treated us like that, we would already have launched an inquiry. And I was up with Amnesty a couple of days ago, and to my knowledge, and somebody can prove me wrong, I haven't been contacted, Paddy hasn't been contacted. Most of the people who were in prison with no access to lawyers, no contact with the outside world, I wasn't even allowed out of my cell. We had about 3 days where we were just in a cell, myself and 12 other lads slowly losing their mind with no knowledge of whether anybody knows what's going on or not. And the Irish government hasn't made contact with anyone since we came out. And I'm saying that because Amnesty, to their credit, raised this issue, and I thought, okay, we need to move on from this and we need to go back being fully focused on the Palestinian cause and what's happening to Palestinians right now today. And of course that's true, but I think it's symbolic, and I think it's important to not let the Irish government actually just close this chapter, because they want this story to go away, they want this movement to go away, and we have to do everything in our power to not let them close this chapter. What kind of precedent does it set? If the Irish government acknowledges international law, and we were kidnapped in international waters trying to uphold international law, brought to a terror camp, and treated like the absolute scum of the earth for 4 or 5 days. And the Irish government have made no real comment about it at all, and they want the chapter to be closed. Are we saying that Irish citizens going forward can be kidnapped in international waters and brought to terrorist camps? You would imagine at the very least there would be an inquiry into what had happened to us. So I just ask you to take from the couple of positive things I'm going to say in terms of what was happening behind bars. We were treated in a certain way. Everyone was treated in a certain way. I have to say the Irish as well got a special degree of contempt, which again, I just thought if Micheál Martin could see them pulling us off boats, for instance, calling me Irish, slapping my head onto the ground, pulling my black shamrock badge off my top, which I thought was so symbolic, ripping an anti-war symbol off your garment, because of course these people are pro-war, they're pro-violence, they're pro-colonialism, they're pro-racism. So of course they're going to get rid of an anti-racist symbol. And I just thought it was so shameful in that regard. But the Italians had a different attitude in prison. They were cock of the walk, they were confident. Why? Because they knew inside a couple of days they were getting out of there. Because Italy was at a standstill. There was cities all over Italy that had been hit with the one thing that they understand, economic pressure. And I have to say, Ireland has led the way with symbolic solidarity, and I couldn't be prouder of it. And we conducted ourselves, I think we did Ireland proud in prison and on the flotilla, and I'm so proud of the people that I was with. It's the very best of Ireland. But I wish Ireland had led the way as well in terms of that economic standstill. I really wish we had. And when it comes down to it, what does everyone want here today? We want our leaders to be forced into doing the right thing. Right or wrong? That's what we want to do. We're sick and tired of waiting for them to do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. That's not going to happen, and we all know that a long time ago. The only language they understand is the economic language. They understand ports being shut down. They understand economic pressure points being hit constantly. And that we have that moment right now. There's a moment in Europe right now where Italy is already doing it, Spain has done it. Ireland should join that charge towards putting this government under the kind of pressure that it will be forced to do the right thing. I don't know about you guys, but I have moved beyond the moment of trying to convince this government to do the right thing on any social or geopolitical issue, but particularly in Palestine. I believe that if you're still normalizing relations with Israel at this stage, if you're allowing 75-year-old activists to be treated with the level of contempt that they were actively trying to let him die in a prison cell for the crime of trying to break the illegal, immoral siege of Gaza. He was only doing what this government doesn't have the courage to do. He was doing the bare minimum, and they won't even contact him to see is he okay. I think a government that complicit in the mistreatment of its own citizens, let alone Palestinians, is not fit for purpose. I think a government like that should be brought down. The moment has passed, I believe, to try and negotiate with people that only care about money.
General strike!
We're at a juncture where people want us to continue normalizing relations with the US because we're so tethered to US multinationals, big tech and big pharma. And I just asked the question, at what point do we say that our souls and our morality mean more than our pocketbooks? At what point? So I just want to finish by saying, you know, the other thing that we saw in their eyes as well, and I'm reluctant to kind of overemphasize this point because the Israelis are still mass murdering Palestinians as we speak today. But two things can be true at the same time. They're still carrying out their violence, but all they know is violence. That's all they've got. When they pointed their guns at us and got us up in the middle of the night, including sick, elderly men and women so that they could count them and humiliate them and make up names of people who weren't in the cells, and they point guns in our face and say, if you don't drop the blanket, if you do this, that, or the other, we're going to kill you. And again, there's no cameras because this is what they do. They also look scared. Do you know what I mean? When you look into the eyes of somebody holding a gun in your face and all they have is violence, all we have is love. All we kept escalating was solidarity. We weren't kicking up a fuss to kick up a fuss. We were kicking up a fuss to get Paddy his insulin. We have compassion in spades. We have incremental, ever increasing compassion and solidarity. All they have is violence, and they're running out of road. I don't know about you, but do you think this sounds like a very secure society? Reefing through people's bags, trying to find any symbol of Palestine. If they found a jumper or a top, or I was wearing a Ladgy Celtic jersey and they took it off and they threw it in the bin, as if it showed some sort of strength, but it just showed weakness. If you were securing yourself, would you need to rip down every symbol of Palestine and replace it with a symbol of Israel? We were on a little sailing boat, and the boat next to us had one small Palestine flag on the boat. And the soldiers who came on and commandeered the boat ripped down the Palestine flag and they replaced it with 3 enormous Israel flags. It's just a little sailing boat. To me, it just smacked of insecurity, and they know the pressure is on them, particularly the economic pressure. They treated the Italians a little bit different. Okay, they've got a kind of relationship with that right-wing government, but you know as well as I do that if Ireland got to that economic pressure point, and Italy, and Spain, and then suddenly Europe starts to put that level of economic pressure, their isolation increases, the pressure on them increases. We have to give up the idea that our leaders are somehow, someday, sometime going to magically do the right thing. They're not going to do the right thing. We need to continue putting pressure on them and escalate the pressure, because what do we want? We want justice and liberation for Palestinians. Is it going to happen by waiting for our leaders to do it? No. Do the people have the power to do it? Well, the Italians had the power to bring their cities to a standstill, so their people who were threatened with 10 to 20 days in prison were out in 2 days. They're scared. They're scared. They're definitely scared. And we are winning, however slow and painful and how much horrific bloodshed there has been. We are winning, and we have to stay united, but we have to escalate. Thank you so much for listening to me. And I'm going to end by just singing a little bit of a song. So as if I didn't need any more reasons to detest the Israelis. My good friend passed away while I was in prison in Israel, Don O'Leary, who I know many of you probably know. And I absolutely adored the man, and he, in many ways, led, and people like us here today, we followed. He was a dedicated anti-fascist and humanitarian his whole life, and it broke my heart, actually, that I think the day I was coming out, he was buried the day before I came out. So it's just yet another reason to be bitter with the Israelis. But anyway, weirdly, this song was sung at his funeral, and I hadn't heard him mention it. And it was a song that was played at his funeral, and weirdly, we were also singing it when we came out of prison, and we were singing it when we came into the airport in Athens. And I just thought there was a weird symmetry there, so I thought I'd make an attempt at probably butchering it today in the original Italian. Sing along the chorus if you know it, you definitely know it. Una mattina mi sono alzato, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invaso, oh partigiano, portami via. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, 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 oh partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. E se muoio di partigiano, oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E se io muoio di partigiano, tu mi devi seppellire e seppellare lassù in montagna. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E seppellare lassù in montagna, sotto l'ombra di bel fiore, e le genti che passeranno. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. Le genti che passeranno mi diranno che bel fiore, e questo fiore del partigiano. Oh bella ciao, bella ciao, bella ciao, ciao, ciao. E questo fiore del partigiano, morto per la libertà, morto per la libertà, morto per la libertà. Thank you very much. Free Palestine. Bring